Hello everyone, welcome to this beautiful summer day. It's great to stand up here amongst some of our terrific partners, committed to sending a message to the federal government that Montana is prepared to manage the grizzly bear. I'm pleased to be joined here today by Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks Director Dustin Temple, Fish, Wildlife and Parks biologist Dr. Costello, Ty Stubblefield, the Executive Director of the Montana Wild Sheep Foundation, Rob Arnault of the Montana Conservation Society, and Blake Henning with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Thank you all for being here today. Together we stand here to celebrate the conservation success of the iconic American species and highlight the next phase of its management, specifically the grizzly bear. Joining Wyoming Governor Mark Gordon, we recently announced the successful translocation of 2 grizzly bears from Montana's Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem to Wyoming's Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem. Due to the work and sacrifice of Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and many Montanans over many decades, we've been successful in helping the grizzly bear recover. Since the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service listed the grizzly bear under the Endangered Species Act, this milestone marks the first time we now have a confirmed Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem bear in the Yellowstone ecosystem. The state of Montana has made genetic connectivity between these two ecosystems a priority, and now we've acted on that priority. We set out with a goal to translocate 2 bears from the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem to the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem by 2025. I'm proud to report today we got it done. As you can see, this is a significant piece of our grizzly bear management plan, and it's one we can control. I'm proud of the work of Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks to successfully manage the species and their commitment to this translocation process. I'd like to thank FWP Director Temple and Dr. Costello for their leadership in this effort and invite them to say a few words. Director?
Thank you, Governor. It's a big day here at Fish, Wildlife and Parks as our staff have worked tirelessly at managing and improving the recovery of Montana, one of Montana's most iconic resources, the grizzly bear. I want to thank Dr. Cecily Costello and her NCDE team, also Dan Thompson from Wyoming Game and Fish, Carrie Gunther from Yellowstone National Park, and additionally from FWP, I want to thank Milan Vinks, Lori Roberts, Oliver Tomey, and Bruce Montgomery. They've worked incredibly hard. I'm proud of their work and their commitment to science behind this genetic connectivity effort. I also want to thank the Governor and the Montana Legislature for giving us the resources to perform this effort in the last session. This effort of relocating 2 grizzly bears from the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem to the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem represents the state of Montana's commitment to the active management of what is now a recovered species in these 2 ecosystems. These efforts by staff not only reinforce the commitments to the long-term viability of grizzly bears in Montana, but also reflects the entire state's prioritization to the recovery and maintenance of this species. We took a step to genetically connect these 2 populations, the Northern Continental Divide ecosystem, which is entirely in Montana, running from Glacier to Lincoln, and the Greater Yellowstone, which includes parts of Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Yellowstone National Park. This ensures robust genetic health for the previously isolated Yellowstone population. We've added a certainty to the recovered status of this population. We care about the grizzly bear. This species has recovered. This illustrates the state's capacity and commitment to manage these bears and these 2 populations under state authority without federal oversight. I want to echo the Governor's sentiment that this is yet another piece in place to ensure that Montana is ready and able to manage grizzly bears. The last piece was not required under the ESA, but we know from our extensive experience and research with grizzlies that genetic connectivity between these 2 ecosystems is incredibly important to the sustainability of this incredible animal. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Director. Dr. Costello?
Hello. I would like to just start out by mentioning that we had a big team that was working on this process. Pretty much all of the grizzly bear staff from the state was involved in some way. And then we also had quite a bit of assistance from the Wyoming Game and Fish Large Carnivore Program and from the Bear Management Office in Yellowstone National Park. I would like to read a few names of people that were involved. Bruce Montgomery, this is from FWP. Bruce Montgomery, Kyle Orozco, Lori Roberts, Oliver Tomey, Milan Vinks, and Kyle York. Dan Thompson from Wyoming Game and Fish. And from Yellowstone National Park, Kelly Adkins, Jacob Bergstrand, Nate Cummings, Oscar Darling, Carrie Gunther, Zane Haraldson, Gary Rains, and Kyle Vetter. So I want to thank all of them. We've done a lot to help improve the conditions for the Yellowstone and the NCDE grizzly bear population. Both of those populations have met their recovery goals or exceeded them, really. Each population has over 1,000 bears in them, and they are getting closer all the time, so that natural movements between these two ecosystems might happen in the future. This basically gave a head start to that process, and the genetic diversity of the Yellowstone population is slightly lower than what we see in the other populations in the region. That's because it's been isolated for about 100 years. There is no immediate danger to the genetics. There's no evidence that there's inbreeding or anything of that kind. So this movement of bears to help increase the genetic diversity of this population is really a long-term goal. It's really trying to allow for this population to have enough diversity in their genetics to respond really well to any kind of changes in the future. So this is really for the long-term health of the population, not any kind of an emergency situation. I also wanted to point out that we have really good programs to deal with conflict prevention and response. We have an amazing team of biologists in this state whose job it is to try to help communities live with grizzly bears and try to make coexistence as possible as we can. We have good research and monitoring programs in both ecosystems where we spend a lot of effort trying to understand how the population is doing over time. All of this regulatory framework, especially things like mortality limits, are put into ARM rules for the state so that we know that we are doing the best we can to maintain these populations. And we also have an excellent outreach and education program. And then finally we ended with this. And I just wanted to talk about the individuals that we moved. It was a little bit of a coincidence that we actually captured them back to back within 2 days. We have actually been trapping for about the last 2 months trying to get a suitable bear to move down to Yellowstone. We are looking specifically for subadult bears because subadult bears are more likely to stay in their new area because they have not yet set up their permanent home range. And so we think that they will take to the area better than moving an adult bear. So we did capture a few candidates that we then decided were not suitable. And it just turned out that we caught 2 suitable candidates back to back in 2 days. So it was really the efforts of a very big team of people to be able to do this efficiently in both cases. So the first bear was a subadult female. She was 3 to 4 years old, captured up in the headwaters of the North Fork of the Flathead and moved down to an area west of DuBois, Wyoming. And the second bear was a 4 to 5 year old male who was also captured in the North Fork of the Flathead, and he was moved to the west side of Yellowstone Lake in the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Costello. Next, I'd like to invite up Ty Stubblefield of the Montana Wild Sheep Foundation. Ty?
Thank you, Governor. Small font. Rookie mistake. While our mission is focused on the conservation of bighorn sheep in the state of Montana, a species that once faced extinction, we are here to celebrate the milestone in our conservation history. We applaud Governor Gianforte, the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and the state of Wyoming for a successful collaboration to introduce genetic diversity into our region's grizzly bear population. This effort exemplifies the effectiveness of the Endangered Species Act. The translocation, like many other management efforts, maintain the stability of our wildlife and are only possible through collaboration and hard work of government agencies, conservation organizations, and private citizens. Thank you to everyone who put in the hard work, and we look forward to the day when Montana's animals returned to state management.
Thank you, Ty. Next, we'd like to have Rob Arnault with the Montana Conservation Society make a few remarks. Please, Rob.
Hey, thank you, Governor. Today is a good day for grizzlies and for Montana. The use of translocation for wildlife is a common and well-accepted practice to help enhance genetic diversity, augment populations when needed, and ensure that our efforts to get grizzly bears returned to state management continue to be fruitful. Montana has done an exceptional job restoring grizzlies across the state, and this translocation continues that decades-long ethic to conserve, protect, and manage all species. Governor Gianforte and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks leadership continues to strengthen our ability to manage these iconic animals and help those of us who live with them deal with their close proximity. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Rob. And last but not least, Blake Henning of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. Sir?
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. The Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation commends the state of Montana, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the state of Wyoming, and their federal partners for this action today, moving grizzly bears from the Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem to the Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem with this effort to enhance the genetic viability of the GYE bear population. RMEF has long advocated for the delisting of the grizzly bear populations in these two population segments and as previously proposed by 3 federal administrations. The GYE and the NCDE bears have been expanding their populations in recent years, and as has been said, those populations are robust. This recent action is again further proof that our state wildlife agencies are responsible wildlife stewards, they are responsive to science, and are committed to sustaining populations. We again commend them for their actions, and we look forward to a delisting soon.
Thank you, Blake. The bottom line is this. The Endangered Species Act was designed to keep species from going extinct, not manage a robust population that's growing. That's why we petitioned the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to delist the grizzly bears in the Northern Continental Divide Ecosystem back in December of 2021. Working with the state of Wyoming and our partners, we achieved the goals set for us, and we've shown the ability to manage bears, protect habitat, and population numbers. It's time for the state to take over management of these iconic animals. It's time to have full authority for grizzly bears in Montana returned back to Montana. Thank you all for being here today, and we'd be happy to take a few questions if there are any. Any questions? Yes.
I guess, what's your thoughts right now on the chances of delisting happening, and what are you going to do if it doesn't happen?
Well, just to review, we petitioned in December 2021. The federal government was supposed to respond to us within 90 days. It took them 2 years and 90 days to acknowledge receipt of the petition. That petition included all the scientific data showing the bears have fully recovered. Just last week, they kicked the can down the road again. If the U.S. Wildlife Service looked at the facts, at the scientific data, these animals would be delisted today. I don't know what their agenda is, but they need to do their job. Yes?
I guess to follow up on that, does the state have recourse? Can the state sue if National decides not to?
Well, we've been following the process. We've been a good partner throughout. We've been working with our state biologists. We've been presenting the data. They just need to do their job, and we'll use whatever tools we have available to get the management of these iconic animals returned back to the state.
One follow-up question. I understand Idaho has a petition to delist all bears in the lower 48, all grizz. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you support that petition?
Do you want to talk about the strategy that Idaho took versus the one we took in delisting in the petitions?
I can, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Idaho has petitioned for delisting across the entire lower 48. So no distinct population segments, simply delist the bear and then potentially go back and look at individual areas after the fact. Montana and Wyoming's strategy was different. We know that we have recovered populations in both the Greater Yellowstone and the Northern Continental Divide ecosystems. You know, to the checklist up here, you know, we have the science, we have the regulatory framework, we have conflict prevention, we have education and outreach. We're fortunate to have world-class staff taking care of grizzly bears in Montana. So we believe that those petitions are well-founded. As the governor said, we believe that they should comply with the Endangered Species Act and issue their decision.
Thank you all for coming today.
Is that okay?